Nowadays, you probably know Jeep as a company specialising in obnoxious and oversized civilian Chelsea tractors for insecure people. But as you're probably aware, they got their start building light four-wheel drive trucks for the Allied forces in World War II. The WILLYS Jeep is the blueprint for all Jeeps, and to a certain extent, all off-road vehicles that have ever come after it, and was also pretty much the first ever mass production 4x4 automobile, with production numbers in the hundreds of thousands. So, as you've probably gathered, today we're going to be building airfix's model of it. Their tiny model of it. The WILLYS MB Jeep. I dread to think how small this is, because 1 to 43rd scale kits are pretty small. 1 to 72? How small is this going to be? Anyway, well, there's only one way to find out. Oh my god! Oh my god! It's tiny! This is a tiny little thing! Oh my god! Why is it in so many parts? Anyway, it comes with 4 paints, tube of poly cement, and a brush, and an instruction manual, which I may as well read. Oh my god, the decals are tiny as well! Why is it? But there's 2 different schemes? It's microscopic! Anyway, the thing. The Jeep, officially designated truck, half-ton 4x4, is the best known of all American vehicles of the Second World War. Originally intended to be a command and reconnaissance car, it became the most versatile of all vehicles, serving as a cargo carrier, personnel transport, ambulance, ammunition carrier, mobile power plant, and even as a heavily armed offensive weapon. 54 horsepower, top speed 65 miles an hour, payload 800 pounds, and also can tow loads such as the 75mm howitzer included here. 600,000 built, remained in service long after the war, also being built under license by Hotchkiss in France. I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation. The British had a modified version with cut down bumpers and other equipment. This version was carried in the Horsa glider and could be dropped from Halifax bombers. Airfix would like to thank Maidstone Sports Cars for their assistance with this project, as well as the Airborne Assault Museum at Duxford. Please visit http://www.paradata.org.uk/ for more information. Anyway, let's get into actually looking into this bag of stuff. So you got, somehow they managed to fit clear part screws in here. I cannot fathom how. Just 2 tiny little parts. And then you got, I assume this is a roof of some kind, and then you got the chassis, and then you got the sides and some other parts. Might be a bit greasy. By the way, if you can hear background noise, it's because of the rain. There's a massive thunderstorm going on right now. Oh dear, these parts are going to be a nightmare to cut off the sprue because they're so thin. I'm kind of worried about that. I've got to be careful with this. This is a gift set, not a starter set, so it's slightly more challenging. But anyway, I think what I'll do is I'll give these a run under the tap, and then I'll get to building. Oh god! Oh, and before I forget, here is the list of all of the stuff which I used to make this kit. Yeah. This kit had a lot of very fiddly, fragile little parts, so for this model I had to get out my pliers for the first time in a while to help with cutting. I would cut through the sprue away from the edge of the part to minimise the chance of the part snapping. I first set about building the chassis of the truck, then onto the body of the vehicle. All the sides of the shell slotted together pretty well and weren't too temperamental to get together, which was nice. However, I will admit that in a couple instances I accidentally put in a few parts the wrong way up and had to carefully pry the cemented bits apart in order to correct my mistakes. I painted the chassis and underside of the shell in Humbrol No. 33 matte black, which comes included with the kit, along with a single coat on most other parts to act as a primer for subsequent colours to stick to. I also picked out the axle, engine, drive shaft and a few other areas on the undercarriage out in No. 53 gunmetal to add some more visual interest. Happy with what I had done at that point, I mated the chassis with the shell ready to move on with the next stage of painting and construction. Many of this kit's parts are painted in No. 86 olive green, so I thinned down the paint in the pot that came with this kit and lathered it onto all the parts that needed it still on the sprue. For the top side of the shell I painted some No. 1 primer on before painting on the green. I painted the wheels in Tamiya XF85 rubber black with the hubs later picked out in Humbrol No. 86. It's worth a mention that this kit doesn't just contain the Jeep, but also a howitzer, a supply trailer and even a parachute platform for the car to be strapped to for being dropped out of a plane into battle. So, at this stage I constructed all of them. Some small areas like the undercarriage and the hooks for attaching the trailers to the back of the Jeep itself were picked out in gunmetal. Bear in mind that these parts can be a bit fiddly to put together, so if you have sausages for fingers then you might struggle with building this, especially these small parts. The entire windshield is moulded as a clear part, and I painted it in olive green. I used a cocktail stick to get the paint around the window frames, and any excess I could just scratch off later once the paint was dry. Once installed, the screen can actually pivot provided you don't glue the hinge together, so that's a nice bit of added play value for those who like it. Afterwards, I installed the seats, which had been painted in No. 26 khaki with green frames, for installing most of this kit's fine details including jerry cans, guns, and a crate in the trailer and a natty rifle in the back of the Jeep itself. There's also the option of installing a raised canvas roof onto the car, but I wanted the interior to be visible, so I left it off. This kit is genuinely really good with the number of combinations of parts you can add. The spare wheel can be installed on the back, the bonnet or the front, and there's a few options for guns in the back, and there's all the extra trailers and parts. It's great! With the kit fully together, I thought it fine time to do some weathering. Following a coat of satin varnish, I added an enamel wash to all the nooks and crannies to make the Jeep look really dirty and oily. I then followed this by getting out my Revel weathering powders and caking on thick dustings of black, muddy brown, sandy and green dust onto all the surfaces to make it look like the kit had been plucked straight from no man's land. Unfortunately, you may notice that I've forgotten a step here. The decals. I forgot the decals. So that kinda sucks. I can already apply them with all the weathering already in the way, so begrudgingly I had to conclude the build there. But then again, the decals weren't really all that interesting, they were just some stencils and a few US Army roundels, and all the weathering I think more than compensates for that. Inside of minuscule size, this kit packs an incredible amount of detail, and I'm really impressed by it. The molding was good, only really any flashes to deal with. Whilst it was a bit fiddly at times, I did